afternoon tea break is Opawaho Heathcote River Network. So not one of our community boards, but Mr. Daniel Collins, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kia ora koutou. So I'll speak on the Opawaho Heathcote River Network's views on the climate change strategy. In the submissions that we made, we addressed issues relating to the specific goals and objectives, but here I'll reframe those into 4 more condensed, more distilled points to take away. Now, the network, as you presumably know, is concerned with restoring and protecting the ecological integrity and modi of the Opawaho Heathcote River for the benefit of all the communities therein. And so that relates a lot to climate change. And so the 4 points that I wish to raise here are these. The first one, be bolder. I know you've heard that a lot from many submitters, in some cases about adaptation and mitigation efforts. Here I'm specifically mentioning the target, the emissions target. While it looks like it's close to the 1.5 degree world from the Paris Accord, can't quite tell, and it's just, given the details about methane, my recommendation or request is that you be bolder and aim for that 1.5 degree in some way. The more we mitigate, the less we need to adapt. And so it can save money in the long run and other benefits. The second point relates to the just transition. Now, in the strategy that was framed as in terms of jobs and the economy for meeting mitigation goals, but I suggest that it be expanded, not just about transitioning towards carbon neutrality, but also transitioning in terms of adaptation. The mitigation and adaptation should be done hand in hand. And as I know Alexander, two speakers previous mentioned, we should think broadly, more broadly than just one pillar of sustainability. This just transition, in our opinion, should address economics, society, culture, and environment altogether. So the third point would relate to this touches home to the network with the Opawaho River. Many climate actions benefit the river and vice versa. And so I ask you to look for co-benefits between the two. Take, for example, revegetation of the Port Hills. That has the climate benefit of sinking carbon and has the ecological benefit of reducing the sediment yield, sediment load to the river, which is one of the major pollutants in Christchurch's most polluted river. Similarly, reducing the road transportation can reduce brake wear and heavy metal discharge into the river, and as well shifting to EVs with braking, going to regenerative braking, is another hidden benefit of changing transport behaviour for the river. So we have co-benefits, and so it's just a win-win situation, a strategic approach. Lastly, it's about communication and engagement. Climate change adaptation and mitigation is complicated and uncertain. It's hard. You have the task of coming up with a plan that transcends decades into the future. None of us will be making these decisions at that time, I suspect. But we collectively need to bring all communities on board. That's hard when things are uncertain and complex. But I do ask you not to simplify messages, not to simplify the science. I'm a climate change researcher myself. And bring on board and establish the social license to make these decisions by being clear about the uncertainties and important actions necessary. The Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment released a report in 2004 on the importance of science being upfront about the uncertainties, which sometimes get lost in high-level documents such as the strategy. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time.
Look, I was really interested in your submission because you used language in a way that I hadn't kind of really thought through around adaptation, and also the significance of that final point about giving people a false sense of certainty about a fixed future. I think that was what you said, and I really would like you to just develop that a little bit further, because I'm nervous. Central government's announced that they're bringing legislation in to replace the RMA. The third one's called climate change adaptation, so I'm just keen for you to say a bit more about
Okay.
that.
So in the guidance for coastal adaptation, there's suggestions about something called dynamic adaptive policy pathways. Some of you will presumably have heard of that. That's a way of trying to accept what we don't know and making decisions despite these limitations. We always do these things. Is it going to rain today? I might take an umbrella. But these decisions that you have on your shoulders are so much harder than that. They go beyond the timeframes of the current plans, LTP, 3-year, 10-year, and so the uncertainty explodes. But we still have to make decisions in spite of that. There are ways to do that, technical ways. But a key point that the PCE report was saying, indeed, that people trust scientists or experts, decision makers, more if they're upfront about the hard bits. And think of, in terms of a false sense of security, if we build us houses up to levees, build the levees higher, think of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, vulnerable communities. That's also happening in New Zealand. In a way, so we have to realise that the average scientific projection is not what's going to happen. We might overshoot, we might undershoot, and generally we might have to think about all that whole range. Yeah. And that's not easy for the general public who doesn't think about these issues on a day-to-day basis. But
yeah. It's hardest in the developed environment, but and that's the real challenge that we've got in front of us. So, look, thank you very much for your submission.
Thank you for your time.
Extremely helpful. Thank you. All right, we have a brief recess for just 10 minutes, I think. 3:30. Okay, so if we could be back here at 3:30 for the next submission. Thank you.